Hello friends and welcome to Sustainable Prepping, your home for fear-free emergency preparedness and a sustainable life. My name is Becky and today we are going to be talking about three books that you should be adding to your shelves that are going to be helpful for emergency preparedness but aren't actually prepping books. If you're new here, I want to say a great big welcome. Glad you found my slice of the internet. If you're not new, I want to say welcome back. Y'all, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of our fear-free emergency preparedness content. So those of you who have been around the channel for a while know that I love books. I'm a little bit of a bibliophile, and one day I plan on having a whole library. But a library is more than just an aesthetically appealing place. It's more than just a collection for people who are book collectors like myself. You can sort of see my messy bookshelf up here in the office. They can also be a useful tool that you invest in to support your emergency preparedness and sustainable living goals. Books can be tools that teach us things and can be referred to even when the electricity is out, the power is out. They are very handy and they are a go-to resource. You might lose a web page could be taken down, the internet can be off, but you have a book, you have that information for the life of the book. So I think they are a worthwhile investment now and always. Today, I'm going to offer you three books that are going to help for emergency preparedness, but they are not actually prepping books. Now, these are all going to circle around the kitchen skills, cooking, things like that. I plan on doing several of these about different areas, but today I wanted to give you three books that I think are especially useful in the kitchen, both for recipes, but also for skills and thinking creatively about cooking and kitchen knowledge. The first book is from a company that anybody who likes homesteading is going to know and be very familiar with. And that is Stories, the Backyard Homestead Book of Kitchen Know-How. This is from Story Publishing. It is written by Andrea Chessman and I believe has a new edition out. Regardless, this is a fantastic book. The whole storyline on the backyard homestead I think is fantastic, and you may see another one of those books in a future review video, but this is a great book, particularly for those of you who do not feel especially confident in the kitchen. This is a great resource that covers a lot of topics. Now, it doesn't go in depth in a lot of things, so you may need to add to your library, but if you are just getting started, if you want a one-shop overview of a lot of different skills that's hands-on, easy to read, digest, use, put into practice, this baby is the one to go for. So one of the things I like about this, and this is just the table of contents, I like about this is all about how to use an actual homestead kitchen. So what makes this different from just sort of a general cookbook is that it assumes you're going to be eating from your homestead. So it's going to tell you about how to make the most out of your kitchen space. It's going to talk about different forms of preserving, from canning to dehydrating to fermenting to other forms of like making jerky and things like that. It's going to give you some recipe ideas. It's not going to go super in depth. So if there's an area that you're very interested in, this could be a jumping off point, but it's going to give you everything you need to get started right now. It's also going to talk about things like butchering. If you are raising meat birds for the first time and you now have 25 whole bird carcasses and you aren't used to cooking whole bird carcasses, how do you chop them up? How do you ask for different cuts of meat for the butcher if that's included? What do you do with all of this abundant fresh produce? Okay, once you've canned it all up, how do you cook with it? How do you take these big barrels of flour that you have and turn them into something? She does a great job in a really joyful way. She's very chatty, very good, almost like you're in conversation with somebody who has 40 years of experience telling you about their ideas and their insights. I love it. There are, drawings and things throughout the book. So she's talking about making cheese. She is going, to have little drawings and things throughout the way. And it really, like I said, it covers a little bit of everything. There's cheese making in here, there's bread baking in here, there's canning and pickling and, fermenting in here. There's all sorts of topics that are about how to take what you can grow on your homestead and process it in a way that's useful. So if I was going to recommend just one kitchen book, one book for cooking, one book for kitchen anything, the one book I would recommend would be The Backyard Homestead's Guide to Kitchen Know-How. This one's fabulous. I'll make sure it's linked down below, but it's a great how-to guide. Now, my second recommendation is a little bit more of a traditional cookbook, and that is A Cabin Full of Food by Marie Beausoleil. I think is how you say her name. I'm not sure. But this is a great, super basic cookbook that is designed to be around how to use what you already have. There are no fancy meals here, okay? This is not gourmet cooking. This is not fancy cooking. This is not impress your friends cooking. This is how do I eat from what I have? And the way this cookbook is set up, right? See, it's very, very basic. It just has a list of numbers. There's no pictures. In some ways it's kind of boring, okay? Super, super basic. This is an indie printed cookbook, right? This is not through a major publisher. If you have a ton of legumes, right? You've got your dried beans. She's going to give you a ton of different options. So how to soften old beans, ways to use dried beans, how to make baked beans, how to can baked beans, how to do a quick chili, how to do baked bean soup, how to do instant refried bean mix, how to do a quick bean salad, right? She's got pages and pages and pages on how to use beans, which might not be exciting if you're someone who's looking for the most new cool recipe, but if you're looking to have a cookbook on hand because you have all of this food storage, but you're not really sure how to use it all, this is like the encyclopedia of cooking with food storage. Will this be a cookbook that you pull out and you use every single week? No, because the food here is quite plain and very simple. But it's a great one to start practicing with and thinking about when you're putting together your long-term food storage, because she gives you ideas on how to cook with, chicken, tons of different chicken recipe, grape recipes, apple recipes, and not just how to use the apple itself, but how to use apple for pectin, right? Like, this is just such a knowledgeable book that is full of resource ideas. Now, it doesn't have a ton of know-how. This isn't going to teach you how to can. This isn't going to teach you how to make a pie. She assumes you have some basic kitchen know-how, which is why I recommended the other book first. But if you are stuck at home, the grocery stores are bare, you need to cook from your food storage, and your meal plan's getting a little boring, this is going to be useful to you. Or let's say you come into some food storage that you didn't make a meal plan for. Maybe you've grabbed a whole bunch of rice and beans and now you need to figure out what you're going to do with them. This is a great book. I actually heard about this book and bought this book initially because of Esther Emery. She was running a YouTube channel with her husband called the Fouch Family Off Grid. I don't know that they're making videos anymore, unfortunately, but Esther Emery is the daughter of Carla Emery, for those of you who know about she was sort of a back to the land writer and wrote tons of stuff on country living. So Esther recommended this book because she loved it, and she's a very knowledgeable home cook, very, very good at all of the home preserving and things, and if she got a lot out of it, I thought, oh, I'll get a lot out of it. I actually lost this cookbook. It was destroyed when I had the great fire extinguisher fiasco, and so I actually repurchased it. This was one of only 3 books I repurchased because I did not want to not have this on my shelves. It's that important of a resource. So it's not flashy, right? It's not a sexy book. It does not have full color. It is very, very basic. It's almost like a giant Word document with something like 500 recipes. However, if you are someone who is not confident in cooking from your food storage, who doesn't know how to put together a recipe very quickly, you've got 50 pounds of black beans and Lord, what are you going to do with it other than burritos? That kind of situation. This is chock full of ideas, and they're simple. They're homey. They're not sexy. They're homey. But in a grid down situation, in an emergency situation, you're not going to be looking for sexy food. You're going to be looking for filling, homey food, and that's what you got here. So I definitely recommend A Cabin Full of Food. The title comes from the old proverb, a cabin full of food is better than a hungry castle. Meaning, it's better to have a humble home that be well fed, to be able to fill that humble home with humble foods, than to be someone living in a castle, but you don't have the funds available to feed yourselves. So, Cabin Full of Food. Get this one on your shelves, practice some of the different recipes, but know that it really is a resource that will hold you in tough times. All right, my third and final recommendation for a non-emergency preparedness book that I think is useful, and it is also in the kitchen realm, is one that's a little bit controversial. Now, this is very popular in the homesteading community. Very popular, and for good reason. A lot of the things that get discussed in this book were intentionally kind of dissected out of American nutrition for many years. However, The author of this book is kind of snarky, and I don't agree with her. I don't agree with her politics. She's anti-vax, and I think that's really problematic. I only bought this book used. I would not recommend buying it new. So I will leave the title of this book and like a link if I can find one to thrift books, but I will not recommend that you purchase this new because I don't like her stand on vaccinations. She's very libertarian. She's very problematic, okay? I don't like her as a person. However, the nutrition information she provides is, I don't want to say completely solid, but it's meaningful and it's reasonable. This has a great recipe section, and she, I think, is bringing to the front, especially in the 90s when this was originally published, some information that had been lost or intentionally suppressed because we didn't want to address sugar addiction and processed food addiction in the United States. For those of you who haven't already guessed, this book is Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. Sally Fallon is a really problematic human being, and I don't like her. And I really want to put that out there. She is anti-vax. She does believe in some pseudoscience, and that's a problem, okay? So know that going in. Know that going in. And if you don't want to support that at all, I want you to make an informed choice. However, some of what she talks about, I've done a little bit of research and I've looked at other peer-reviewed articles because science is not about someone writing an opinion on the internet. It's about peer-reviewed articles. And some of what she has to say has borne out. I mean, she's not wrong about the fact that it's sugar and not fat that is harming our bodies. She's not wrong about the fact that we need fermented foods and we need things with collagen like bone broth. And this was being written in the 90s. The T. Weston Price Foundation, which is what she's talking about here, a lot of the research she's talking about comes from him, is problematic, okay? I like a lot of what it has to say. I do read and listen to some of what they have to say. This is a really huge book. I'm going to set it down. The T. Weston Price Foundation, while it does some good research, it's basing a lot of their medical opinion and a lot of the recommendations on T. Weston Price's research. He was an untrained dentist. He was a dentist, but he wasn't trained in clinical research dentistry. He made observations, which means he discovered correlations and not causations. Anybody who knows anything about science knows how dangerous correlations without causational research is. So I want to put that out there. Do I think they have something useful to say and to provide? Yes, I do, because that is truly independent research that was being done, and I think is hitting on some truths, right? You can come up to truth and you can be right about some things and wrong about others. And I think they're right about the problem and the danger of sugar, the danger of highly processed foods that have lost a lot of their nutrient content, the danger of a food system without fermentation, without collagen builders, and frankly without a little bit of animal products. So I do think that some of what she has to say is very good. However, I think they take some of this good advice and they do run a little bit into weird libertarian, anti-establishment thinking that is actually harmful. The book itself, I think, is fabulous because it has a ton of recipes, okay? Much like the other book, it's based on the kind of food you have, but these are a lot of really traditional recipes and traditional ways of cooking that I think are really useful. Particularly its sections on fermentations, its sections on broth and creating healthy broths for gut repair. As someone who lives with a chronic gut illness, I got a lot of use out of this, and frankly it's informed my way of taking bone broths. I think this is a useful tool because it is so radically different than a lot of what's out there. Now, there are more people writing books that are informed by this. I think some of the research of a functional doctor, like Dr. Mark Hyman, who has the Doctor's Pharmacy, FARMACY, is useful, and he is looking at peer-reviewed work that does align somewhat with this, not 100%, but somewhat with this. And I think that could be a great place for you to jump into if you find and resonate with this. But please know, her tone is caustic in the beginning, and I tried to read this once and set it down and didn't look at it again for 6 months because she sounded like a giant biatch, and I was like, I don't need her to live rent-free in my brain. I did go back to it, and I do think she has some important things to say. I think the recipes and the insights in here are useful, and I think that in a long-term grid down situation, having some tools to help us have a more rounded diet, a diet with fermentation, a diet with fat, a diet with lots of different kinds of vegetables, a diet with lots of different nutrients that are going to feed our microbiome is helpful. And this book is useful for that. At this point, I haven't found a good replacement, even though I don't like Sally Fallon. So all of that to say, this is one I like and I think is useful, but I don't like the author. And so if you can separate author from creation, then this is a good one to pick up. I do, of course, recommend that you buy it used. Also, this thing is really expensive. It was like $20 when I bought it used. So it's like $40 or $50 now. Don't spend that much money on this book. Find it used. Wait and find it used. Know that this is not a controversy-free book, right? The other two, fairly controversy-free. This one has some controversy. So go into it with your eyes wide open. Know that it's an imperfect book, but it's a solid book on creating a foundation of more traditional eating styles. If I find something better, I'll update this and give you a new option so you don't need this giant monstrosity. So there you have it, friends. These are the 3 non-emergency preparedness books that I think will help set up your emergency preparedness library for success. They all have to do with kitchen stuff. If you were only going to buy one, I definitely think it should be the Backyard Homestead's Guide to Kitchen Know-How. That one's fabulous. And if you were going to not buy one, it would be the Sally Fallon. You're going to be like, why did you recommend it if you don't like her so much? Because it really is so far the best one out there. Friends, comment down below and let me know what you would add to this list. What is a book or two that is all about kitchen skills, cooking, handmade stuff, cooking from scratch, cooking from food storage that you think is would be an essential guide, an essential tool for anybody's home library. Also, if you have a recommendation for a book but is not this one, but covers similar material that has perhaps more recent research behind it, I would love to know. I would love to be able to replace this with something that has more recent research, that has better research, better peer-reviewed research behind it, as well as has recipes, because you can find one that's just research-based. You can find some that are just recipes, but having it all together is hard. So if you have any recommendations, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to come and find me over on Instagram and over at the Facebook group. I'd love to chat. And if you want to do like a read along, or we can read or go through some of these books or other emergency preparedness-ish and adjacent books, I'd love to do that. Let me know. Hope you have got some new reading ideas. And until the next video, happy prepping.